Have you ever heard about the Sons of Silence? This old-school gang is known for being one of the most violent motorcycle clubs in the West, operating outside the law and embracing a criminal brotherhood. So, stick around as we explore their history, influence, and some of the most shocking events they've been part of. The Sons of Silence Motorcycle Club was founded in Niwot, Colorado in 1966 by Bruce the Dude Richardson, who lived in Longmont after serving in the U.S. Navy from July 1958 to February 1960. Richardson eventually left the club and passed away from natural causes in Scottsbluff, Nebraska, on March 26, 2013. The club's national headquarters were later moved to Colorado Springs. Another influential figure in the club's history was Leonard Lloyd Jr. J.R. Reed. Also a Navy veteran, Reed served from 1965 to 1969. He succeeded Richardson as the national president of the Sons of Silence in 1977 and held the position for 22 years. During the 1990s, Reed and attorney/motorcyclist Richard Lester formed the Colorado Confederation of Clubs, improving communication between motorcycle clubs and helping to avoid conflicts. Reed died at the age of 55 in Denver on June 20, 2003, and was given a club funeral featuring a large procession of motorcyclists on Interstate 25. The Sons of Silence are primarily based in the Mountain States and the Midwest. The first chapter outside Colorado was established in Iowa in 1968. Their alliance with the Hells Angels allowed them to expand further. Now, there are chapters in Arkansas, Colorado, Florida, Idaho, Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Minnesota, Mississippi, Missouri, North Dakota, South Dakota, Utah, and Wyoming. The club's first international chapter was founded in Munich, Germany, in 1998. In 2001, the Sons of Silence expanded further in Germany, establishing additional chapters in Freidinging and Nuremberg. More branches followed in Verden in 2007, Erding in 2010, and Farin in 2016. The Sons of Silence's insignia features an American eagle superimposed over the letter A, inspired by the Anheuser-Busch logo. This emblem is worn as a patch on the back of each full member's jacket, known as colors, along with other badges featuring symbols and phrases. Common additional patches include the 1% emblem and Totenkopf imagery. The club's motto, Donec mors non separabit, translates from Latin to "until death separates us." Classified as an outlaw motorcycle gang by the United States Department of Justice, the Sons of Silence have traditionally been part of the Big Five biker gangs, alongside the Bandidos, Hells Angels, Outlaws, and Pagans. Although now surpassed in membership size by the Mongols, the Sons of Silence remain deeply involved in various criminal activities, including murder, assault, drug trafficking, intimidation, extortion, prostitution, money laundering, weapons trafficking, and the theft of motorcycles and parts. The Sons of Silence Motorcycle Club maintains several chapters in Colorado, including locations in Colorado Springs, Fort Collins, Aurora, Grand Junction, and 2 in Denver. The club is heavily involved in the distribution of methamphetamine at both wholesale and retail levels within Colorado. They obtain the drug from Mexican drug cartels and also produce it themselves in Weld County. The Colorado chapters also transport and distribute methamphetamine to other states, including North Dakota. On March 5, 1972, 6 members Scott Benningdorf, John Barnard, Bobby Mann, Art Miller, Mark Weyer, and National President Bruce Richardson were charged with assault with a deadly weapon and jailed following a bar brawl in Colorado Springs. The brawl, which involved a total of 22 participants, was the result of a power struggle between the Sons of Silence and 2 other motorcycle clubs, the Dead Men and a group known as Phil Town. Some of the arrested members were also allegedly involved in a conspiracy earlier that year to kill police officers and kidnap their children. Additionally, Sons of Silence member Brian Carl Young was convicted of criminally negligent homicide in the death of a 16-year-old girl. She was killed when Young accidentally discharged a .22 caliber Ruger rifle that he was modifying at the Sons of Silence clubhouse in Commerce City. On October 3, 1982, 6 members of the Sons of Silence, Jackie Howard Jr., James Dean Jimmy Joney, Gerald W. Richardson, Larry Lee Richardson, Dennis Raymond Swingler, and Ralph W. Vickery, were convicted of conspiracy to manufacture and distribute methamphetamine. This conviction followed their arrest on I-80 in Wyoming, where they were caught transporting 36 pounds of methamphetamine and a mobile drug lab obtained from Cecilia Martinez, the wife of the imprisoned president of the Bar Hoppers Motorcycle Club, Glenn Gary, in Modesto, California. The drugs were being transported to Denver. These convictions were the result of an FBI investigation into the Colorado Sons of Silence, which began in September 1981 and was supported by FBI informant Beth Pfizer, the divorced wife of a club member. In 1983, a Sons of Silence member was charged with the murder of a Diablos Lobos gang member during a turf war in an Aurora bar. That same year, a bar fight between the Sons of Silence and the Invader motorcycle gang at a Denver tavern led to sporadic shootings. Sons of Silence biker Ron Bemis was shot to death in his driveway by Invader member Alfred H. Crazy Al Mills, who was subsequently convicted of murder. On April 17, 1993, Sons of Silence member Paul Robert P.K. Klein was shot and killed by Eugene Herbert Bice at Gym and Star Bar in Colorado Springs, where Klein was the bar manager. Bar patron Stephen Fairfax was also killed, and 5 others were wounded. Biz, armed with an AK-47 assault rifle and 4 hand grenades, only stopped his shooting spree after being shot and wounded by a police officer. Biz claimed that Klein had shot him with a pellet gun earlier that day, prompting him to go to the bar to detain Klein until the police arrived. Biz was acquitted of murder and other charges in 1995. After his attorneys argued, he acted in self-defense. He was later sentenced to 3 years in prison on federal weapons charges and was killed in a shootout with Bureau of Land Management officers in May 2018. The shootout at Gym and Star Bar was featured in Episode 10, Season 6 of the investigation discovery documentary series Homicide Hunter. The first Sons of Silence chapter in Indiana was established in the 1970s by Michael Righteous Mike Ramsey, a former member of the Outlaws, who left that club in 1974 amid internal conflicts. Ramsey received permission from Sons of Silence founder Bruce the Dude Richardson to establish a chapter in Indianapolis. Ramsey later served as the national president of the Sons of Silence. Before retiring from the club, Michael Righteous Mike Ramsey passed away from a heart attack at the age of 50 on March 10, 1991. The expansion of the Sons of Silence into Indianapolis led to friction with the Outlaws. This tension escalated from infrequent fights, where members of rival clubs would try to forcibly take each other's colors, to a full-blown war. The conflict erupted after the near-fatal stabbing of Outlaws member Dale "Dummy" Lark during a bar fight on the city's west side in July 1978. The rivalry between the Sons of Silence and the Outlaws in Indianapolis during the late 1970s and early 1980s resulted in several murders, including the deaths of 2 girlfriends of Sons of Silence members. On March 5, 1980, 2 gunmen opened fire with automatic rifles on the Outlaws clubhouse at 1210 East Ohio Street, killing Outlaws National Vice President Thomas Walter Satan Reeves. Hours before the shooting, members of the Sons of Silence and the Outlaws had been drinking together at a bar on the east side of Indianapolis. On November 15, 1981, Outlaws member John Big Jack Slater was left paralyzed after being shot with a .38 caliber pistol by Sons of Silence member Eric Doc Lewoski outside the Sons of Silence clubhouse. Slater was then bundled into a van and killed with a 12-gauge shotgun by another Sons of Silence member, Hendrik Savage Johnson. Lewoski was convicted of voluntary manslaughter, while Jansen was acquitted after testifying that he believed Slater was already dead when he shot him. On May 30, 1984, as he answered the door of the Sons of Silence Indianapolis clubhouse, Bruce Burke Eastman was killed with a shotgun. Sons of Silence enforcer Ronald Merrill, also known as Bad Ron Gruber, was sentenced to 35 years in prison for rape and assault in Black Hawk County in October 1977. While serving time in the Iowa State Penitentiary, Gruber and another inmate were sued by two guards they had assaulted. After his release, Gruber was among several club members convicted on federal racketeering charges in 1994. Another member, Clark Joseph Cook, was convicted of methamphetamine possession after being caught with a bag of the drug during a traffic stop by the Iowa State Patrol on September 5, 1993. In November 1994, 14 members or former members of the Sons of Silence were indicted in Cedar Rapids on charges including racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy, and committing violence in aid of racketeering. 12 of them were immediately arrested and eventually pleaded guilty or were convicted. In May 2014, Milton Charles Barbwire Wilson, president of the Sons of Silence Kansas City chapter, was charged with transporting a minor across state lines for prostitution. Along with Kyla Foxy Pinkerton, Wilson transported Pinkerton and the victim to various locations in Missouri and Kansas in December 2013. Both pleaded guilty to the crime on April 1, 2015. In September 2015, Wilson was sentenced to 10 years in prison, and Pinkerton received a 16-month sentence. Sons of Silence founder Bruce the Dude Richardson was sentenced to 6 years in prison after pleading guilty to hiring Robert Leslie Kitke to organize the abduction of Dr. Michael Raw from a Buffalo hotel in May 1984. The abduction was reportedly an attempt to recover approximately $260,000 that Dr. Raw owed to Richardson's wife, Patricia Strahan, after a failed business venture. This abduction followed unsuccessful court proceedings to recover the funds. Along with Strahan, 3 others, Michael Ratley, Robert Jordan, and Ariel Falcon, were sentenced in connection with the crime. The Sons of Silence have established chapters in Bismarck, Fargo, Grand Forks, and Minot, North Dakota. The club is heavily involved in methamphetamine trafficking throughout the state, typically using smaller affiliated motorcycle gangs to distribute the drug at the retail level. This strategy helps insulate the Sons of Silence from law enforcement scrutiny. Mexican-produced methamphetamine is transported into North Dakota for distribution from other Sons of Silence chapters, primarily those in Colorado. The Sons of Silence are also alleged to have ordered the murder of Williston rancher Jack Scholl, who went missing in April 2013. His body was found in rural Williams County the following month. In another incident, Sons of Silence members Corey Rutherford, Matthew James Wedgwood, and Nicholas B. Hansen pleaded guilty to charges related to an assault and robbery at a bar in Rock Springs. On April 10, 2017, they beat and robbed Bradley Chrisman, a member of the rival Bad S Motorcycle Club, of his colors. The trio received suspended prison sentences in October 2017.